provide?
Services.
What kind of services? What kind of services out here?
The best service.
Instructional and educational services. Where do we provide services? Everywhere. Where? Not everywhere. In our global world, where do we provide services?
The
State of Alabama.
You can't try us.
When do we provide services?
When they show up.
Every day self-service.
Year round.
Yeah,
So when y'all get to talking about, oh, summer, no, year round, you provide services, right? And why? So now we got all that figured out. Why do we provide services?
By the citizens who are used to survive.
That was a good answer, but that ain't it. Close. Why do we provide services? Why do we provide instructional and educational services to the students of Alabama year-round? Why? Because there's a need. What are we here for today? Yes. Hey, you on my last side. I can't hear on this side. For college or career, right? So what is the law that we are funded under? Workforce. Right, okay, so y'all get that. All is coming together. How are we doing all of this, right? Today is going to talk about not only do you have to have standards, but you have to have standards that correlate with employment skills. Okay. We need people working. All of us go in the workforce at some time or another and come out of it at some time or another for different reasons, as well as our students do. They come in, come out, go in, go out, stay out, come back in 50 times, which way that works. But all of us at some point in our levels of education still have to go into workforce. So that is really why, one, we are under title, the new law, the act, and they're merging all the titles together. That's one thing. But then also because the state of Alabama is wanting us to integrate employment skills into the framework that we do as far as our instructional and educational services. Where do you learn how to do a resume? In our regular K-12 system. Where do you learn that? High school.
English class.
You don't.
English class, possibly. Not every high school teaches you employment skills. Not every high school does throughout the country or even in the state of Alabama. So employability skills, there are the broad categories. There's 3 categories that we have to think about. And those categories are applied knowledge. So this thing you can't see, but you have applied knowledge, effective relationships, and workplace skills. Applied knowledge is what we are all familiar with. usually it's academic in nature. How are you applying the math you're learning? How are you applying your reading and writing skills to write a resume and all of those types of things? Effective relationships. Why is it important for us to have effective relationships? You gotta be able to do what? Teamwork, right. So you have interpersonal skills, personal qualities. Those fall under effective relationships. How do you integrate that into a person's plan? How do they learn these skills? Teamwork, group work that you do in the classroom. And then you have what we call workplace skills. What can you do with information use as a workplace skill? Information use. What are you using information to do? What are the big jobs in Alabama?
Shipbuilding.
Labor market information. What does the labor market information say, or Department of Labor say the big jobs are in Alabama? Manufacturing. Information use. Most manufacturing companies have what they call standard operating procedures. Everybody likes that book that they can refer back to. Most manufacturers will have those standard operating procedures up. You have to be able to read that stuff to operate the machines. So you have to use information to follow procedural steps. So they need that. Communication skills, systems thinking, technology use. Be that we want to or not, if you don't stay up with technology, you're going to be lost. That's every one of our students, every one of you. Every one of your instructors. As much as you might not like technology, I mean, think about the one thing that we all pretty much have to do now that we didn't do probably 15 years ago. Everybody has a debit card. Jobs make you have to direct deposit. Most of them. So either you're going to catch up with it or you're going to be left behind. So it's just about how do you use it, how do you help our students actually work within the systems that we have today. And that's the bottom line. So this is kind of the employability skills framework. I'm sure this presentation will be available, right? In the course sites, was it on the course sites? So you want to make sure that you're aware of how are you going to put the employability skills framework into the classroom. And so it's very important that you put this piece in there because most of our students may come from homes that there are not working people in. Where do they learn these skills at or from? You partner with the career centers now. So therefore, if you're not doing it in your classroom or in your program, maybe you can get your career center partners to offer it and bring it to you. The other thing is you want to make sure that you are having your instructors knowledgeable about these different skills as well. So when you do your regional training approaches, you want to make sure that you dive in a little bit deeper into employability skills. There is, if you Google employability skills framework, there is a lot of information that's out there as well as it was with standards, so they can pull information from a lot of different places. But you have to include this because all funded programs are saying we now want people to work. It's just that simple.
And Tony, our state plan says we are abiding by employability skills framework as well.
Okay. So, which is why we will move on and talk about how we're going to, I guess the tool we're going to utilize for standards and employability skills framework. I think I have some papers up here. Are they okay? Okay, so if somebody, go back there. There's a right there. I think it's a plan of instruction.
Oh, yeah.
And, guide. So, this is kind of preference.
You wanna
We
pass it
had
out?
a group, each person gets one of these. We had a group that gathered together, just like the CCR standards work group team. We had a plan of instruction work group team. And so we talked about how, what do we need to do to make sure that we're using the same instrument across the state. We went to a couple programs that wrote plan of instructions on notebook paper. Some of the other programs had an electronic form, but it wasn't consistent across the state. So what we want to do is be consistent, and we also said it in our state plan, that we were going to, implement standards, implement the employability skills framework, and that we wanted a consistent way going from program to program as to how we were going to document that. Whoever had that question from the first day, they asked, how are we going to document that we are implementing standards? Right? This is going to be the challenge. But we have a solution. So we're going to all use a standardized form. That's what's being handed out to you. The templates will be available in ASAP for fillable use. The sample templates will be placed on course sites for reference use. Did y'all get that? What did I say, Kim? Okay.
And eventually, Tony, we're gonna have a link in ASAP where they can go out to our website and get the reference templates as well, but that's to come.
So, I said the fillable template will look like the one that's being handed to you with the colors on it. The already completed template for your reference will be on the course site's website. The course site is in the same. Once you have to go to the retrain. Course site, right?
Okay.
Lenny templates up here, please.
What do you need?
I think she's just showing.
I just need some more for it. They don't have any other tables.
Ladies, are there any more templates? They didn't get any up here.
You need more. Okay. Okay, we're gonna make some copies, but in the meantime, if you could share, that would be great. So the first document is front and back, the non-colored documents, front and back. That's just a tool, a quick reference guide for you to be able to look at, and actually for the instructors to be able to look at, to quickly fill out a plan of instruction. My thought process for this was, yes, you can get a already developed template for a student when they first come in the door. However,
No. Microphone.
if your student is there long enough, you're going to have to individualize their plan of instruction. So you may start with just an already, if they're at a certain level. We'll have the templates on the course sites according to the levels and the subjects. So you would be able to retrieve it according to the results of their assessments. Everybody with me? Yes. Any questions so far? Okay, so we're just gonna walk through this form. Student name, NRS level, and their corresponding CCRS level is at the top. Any questions about that? This would be completed with that information. That's why I'm saying, on ASAP, we're going to have the Excel worksheet. You can fill it in, type it in, or you can write it in. We just need it in the folder when we come. I just happened to use the math one, but we will have one for math, for all the CCR levels, all the subjects, and all the levels. Everybody with me?
Just ease off.
If we stay together, we're gonna get out of here. Second section. So you have to just document, remember we said, this is the tool we will use to document the uses of the standards and the employability skills framework that we said in our state plan. Do I have to stand right here in the middle, Ezra?
No, I was trying to tell you to ease off the microphone.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so then I just used the math for this particular exercise, but each one of the templates might have something different based upon what's relevant to that subject matter. Okay, in the sections underneath. So if you don't have math and you have writing, or you have reading and you have speaking and listening, it may have something totally different. But a lot of the parts are very similar. The standard. This is the part where you have to know what your standards are, or be able to quickly reference what your standard is that you're going to be working on with that instructor, which is why with that student, I'm sorry. That's why I gave you the quick reference guide. Now, you may not know the specific, once you know what you're working on, what subject matter, what level that student is, then that's when you're going to have to go to those pages, and the pages in the booklet that was given out. But this is just a quick way to crosswalk it real fast. Any questions? And then you would just fill in accordingly. What materials are you going to use? Instructional materials, that is. Or if you have vocabulary that you're going to be working on. You can reference a book if you're using a specific book, an online software if you're using an online software. Whatever you're using, you need to say that's what you're using. Okay.
Question. I got a question.
Yes.
As we went through this training with you on these templates,
Yes.
some question would ask, do we have to do one for each topic that we teach on with that student?
Okay, the question becomes, what is that student working on? Are they working on multiple subjects at one time?
What I'm asking you, if they're working on fraction.
You
Okay.
can have more than one standard, does that help?
You can have more than one standard in there, but if they're working on math, then that's what that is. If they're working on writing, then that's what that is. You can fill this into whenever, God's galore, if that's what they are working on. But it depends on what level they are to get them to that next level. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, ma'am.
Give us an example.
Okay, the student might be working on fractions, but they're working on math, they're working on fractions. Whatever level they are at, let's just hypothetically say they're in high school level, you're working on fractions. You're gonna go to that reference guide that I gave you. That bottom piece, you're going to put the standards according to the, give me the piece, thank you. You're gonna put the standards that's relevant to fractions on here. Specific, right, the specific standards, which is why I said you're going to also have to use the booklet that we gave you. Go back to those pages.
So my next question to you, I don't want to feel like I'm crazy here, but when are we going to find time to do all of this? And we have to teach. You know, I'm just asking the question because this is a workshop.
It is part of the teaching too.
It's part of your documentation, and as I said to you yesterday, and I've heard it today, we're not asking you to do anything you're not already doing, we're asking you to document it. You teach this stuff all day, every day, but you have to document that you are aligning your lessons to the college and career readiness standards.
Okay, my next question is, why can't we add
We are.
Why can't
We are. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, you said WIOLA, but this is going to fit in with WIOLA. Why can't we use the template we already using and then implement this onto our POI?
Statewide, when Miss Tony and Miss Wendy walks into a classroom, I don't care where they walk into.
Standardization.
They need to, everything needs to be standardized. What you're doing may be working very well for you, and my Trenton person here, it may be kind of shabby, but she's doing something similar to what you're doing, and Lawson State might be, but one thing the feds say, standardize. When they walk into these classrooms, they need to see the same thing in every classroom, being taught in different ways. But that documentation is the most important, and that's what this is giving you, a way of documenting what you're already doing.
And in the fractions, so if we put more in fractions for high school students, standards is still gonna be in a lower domain, it's gonna be in one of that low domain. And then you're gonna run them.
Hold on one second.
But you're gonna use marketing tips that you're using in that manner. Things like fractions, denominator, numerator, would be your vocabulary, something like that. Now, the objective, we filled in the objectives before. Is that what they would reference on the board side?
Yes, so if you're, is that what I'm saying, you can reference back to the, right, they can reference different pieces of it. I'm using this as a template, right? We need all these sections to be part of the template. Now, if you go back to your program and you say, I want to this way versus this way, but all of these items need to be on your plan of instruction. So I don't know why you would reinvent the wheel, but if that's what you want to do, you have the liberty to do that. Because in the assessing the mastery of objectives, you got to put down what assessment or what did you give this student to say they are now have mastered this concept. So what would you put down for they mastered fraction? What was it? Some you used in the book, some you used, would you use a software program? Now it's holding everybody accountable for their effective instruction according to standards. And be that you guys know, standards been out like 3-4 years. We're really behind the ball. Gwen, I'm sorry.
That's okay. The question that has come up is several programs have maybe 2 hours a week for planning. Will directors have the liberty of giving more than 2 hours a week for planning these activities for individualized instruction for each student? That's the question that's come up. The planning time that they've been assigned. Are we going to be given the ability to do more than the 2 hours a week per teacher to plan?
Was that a policy?
For some,
Was it a policy?
for some, it may
Or was it a standard practice?
I'm just asking.
I'm just asking the question because I don't know. Huh? It's about your planning time. So everyone's, huh? It's not in our handbook? Okay. So we'll research it because it's not in our handbook. So, because I've never seen that anywhere. That's why I'm asking you. Is it a policy I'm not aware of, or is it a standard practice? Okay. Okay. And at this point, go ahead. Phyllis has a question too, though. Phyllis? On that. Oh, because it'll change. It'll change throughout the course of that student's educational journey in your program. That's what I'm saying. You may start out with a generic one just to get them started, but then over time, it should change as that student progresses. Yeah. Oh, you need a mic? Oh, okay.
Just again, I've been saying this the last 2 days, and I want everybody to try to buy into this real quick, because what we're finding out is this is where I saw more glossy eyes than I've seen the whole 2 days. But what we're trying to do is implement it so we can work out the best practice and kind of see what works. But a great question came up here, and I wanted to share it. She said, well, do I have to, if I'm teaching fractions, do I have to do a sheet for addition of fractions, subtraction of fractions, division? I said, no. I said, what I would do, and somebody may know it better than me, but what I would do is I would do the most difficult standard, and then put within that larger standard that I'm working on those steps to get to that, because I may need to identify what a whole number is. So you've covered that, because you need to know what a whole number is before you know what a fraction is. And you just keep adding those standards. So you won't have 200, POIs for one student. You're just building on one major standard or anchor standard and putting those other things underneath it, or within it. I shouldn't say underneath it, but within it. And it is going to be a work in progress, and we will revisit, because there is a POI team that Tony's heading, and we can kind of see what works later on.
Would it be possible to add a date field to this template before it's put in ASAP? We were just talking at our table that as the student progresses, they're going to get a new POI.
They
right?
can, yeah.
So that date would be helpful when they have several of these in their folder. Let's say we have a teacher that's out one day and someone comes in to sub. They would know which one of these to work with. I just think that might be.
That's fine. I will take that into consideration.
Thank you.
I will put it on there,
Okay.
if that's helpful. That's fine. What we have to understand is that we have to show, is it the teacher or is it the student that's not progressing? I mean, really, that's the bottom line. We have to show and document that we're teaching to standards, because effective teachers, we have a lot of students who are pre and post tested and they go nowhere. So this is something that we have to show that, and we have to document that I as a teacher understand what I'm teaching the student. Now, as far as their progress, pre and post testing, if the post test doesn't take them to another level, if I would have ran the report, I would have told you how much percentage of our students are getting hours and hours of instruction and they are not moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's a high number. And if we do not get with the program, none of us ain't gonna have no jobs. So I'm trying to keep my job, I'm trying to help everybody else keep their job, so I'm good, because I don't need to be in the unemployment line. So the truth of the matter is we have to implement standards, because we have to teach so that the students that are giving you the hours of instruction, they're giving you the hours of instruction, they are comprehending and moving forward. And that's why we're offering all these other options as well. I mean, when you talk about career pathways, you're talking about putting people and expediting them, but they also have to be gaining academic knowledge along the way. Yes.
We also take into consideration those persons with special needs, because we do have a lot of them, and some of them are undiagnosed. And I'm not saying that your numbers are incorrect. I'm just saying if you will also incorporate that piece as well, because we do have a lot of students.
Which is why now on our enrollment forms, we're asking more questions. So now you can know who you're serving as long as they're able to self-disclose. If they're not self-disclosing, then they don't. But the reason why a lot of people don't self-disclose is because the process by which you explain to me to fill out this form, I'm not comfortable yet. I'm not comfortable telling you that I think I might have that. So we also got to work on the way in which we deliver our services. So there's a lot of things that we're working on to try to implement and get those individuals that are really focused on what we need. So we need to think quality over quantity. We need to start designing our programs in that way. Somebody had a question right here, sorry. Okay.
The question that we had is this: I know that we are to use this form, but what is this transitional time in which we need to implement? Because if someone is coming in to check our files, are we to retroactively go back?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It will be effective as of March 31st, everything. And everything will be out there for you to utilize.
So effective
whatever
March,
day it falls on the
effective
day.
March 31st, every new student? Or
Every new student.
Gotcha.
No, ma'am. Every new student. Every new student that comes in and gets enrolled in the program after March 31st, we will be looking for that. Yes.
Okay, I think everybody, at the end of the day, I think what we need to know, well, based on what I'm hearing, and I know you and I know Miss Wendy, we just basically need to know y'all will be here to support us in doing this, because I know everybody wants to do it, but when you have something that you're not accustomed to doing, you feel overwhelmed. So I think if we know we could call and ask questions to make sure we're doing it right, and I know y'all will do that for us, then we will feel more comfortable, because sometimes, you may do it, but then you're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right, and you want to make sure you're, not wasting time.
You're not going to have it right the first time around.
Right.
But
So
we got to
need
start.
to do it, right.
So we have to start.
But you guys
We
are
will
going
do.
to definitely, y'all will come help us if we need you to come visit.
If you put in a request, we can definitely come help you. That's not the problem. I think what it is we have to show the feds that we have a method. We have a method by which we've chosen, not just a method, but a tool, and that it has been implemented statewide, and we're on a continuous improvement with that. So that's what we're working on. Yes.
I wanted to say to everybody in this room, I said to my 2 instructors that are here today, I'm not sending you to this training today and then taking my hands off telling y'all now go do it. I don't think these 2 ladies will put us down like that as well. So please don't be fearful that March 31st is fastly approaching, true. But you got to understand, we were back here talking, we put a lot of pressure on our students to get it. Now we've got to get it. And we're in this together. Please don't leave here feeling like, oh my God, they gave me all this information and now I got to go implement. My folks know I got their back. And I feel very confident that Wendy and Tony does as well. And all of the directors that are in here and instructors, as I said, this is a learning process for all of us, but it's mandated by the feds, so there is no way that we're going to get around it. We need to make it very simple so that we can make it work, and when the feds come and look at us, they say, oh, Alabama got this. So we're in it together now. We're not leaving anybody. No, look, no adult ed program left behind.
Thank you, Sharon. Go ahead, come on. Yes, ma'am.
We got new enrollment forms.
Yes, ma'am.
Those went into effect January 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
So all of our students that are in our program now need to fill out those new enrollment forms. And then 2, are we gonna
No, effective January 1. Whoever
so
came in
you
January
was
1.
okay.
Whenever we do an implementation, it's from the date of implementation moving forward, unless you are instructed otherwise.
Okay. Now, are we gonna get new forms come the beginning of the year, or can we go ahead and print enough forms to have at the beginning of our new fiscal year?
I'm
They usually
confused.
change once a year. our enrollment forms, we get new enrollment forms every year.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we consider that this is our new enrollment form for this next year?
What's our new enrollment
The one
form?
we got for January 1st.
Yes, that's your new enrollment form. Yep.
I just got one request. Could you put up an example on the course sites with one of these filled in, just to give us a model?
Absolutely. You will have all levels, all subjects filled in.
Good.
That's what we worked on as a
Right.
template.
That's what I was
just
just a model.
by the time we do implementation, you will have everything you need to refer back to.
Good. That's what I was.
Right. I'm not putting you out there just cold. Okay. It might look like it, but we're not.
Wait, 1 minute.
My question is about the new TAPE test for 2017. Do we know when they are coming out? And will they be aligned to these standards in a way that it would help us in plotting them out?
That's the goal, they still do not have a date.
But they will be aligned.
And
somewhat
Ante
to the
hasn't approved the
standards?
new test.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Can I say that I spoke with one of the vendors the other day, and one of them did make a comment they did not anticipate before 2019 actually.
What did you say? When? They will be up by mid-February. By mid-February. Yes. So I would say if you're trying to have everything you need by March the 31st, we are trying to have all of our resources and sites available already as much as we can for what you need to do by the middle of February. So that gives you the end of February and all of March to do your local training, if that's what you want to schedule it. If that makes sense, the 45 days. And like I said, even when March 31st comes, if you're not fully, we just have to make sure that you have a day planned, that you plan to do it, and you have to be able to use it from that point moving forward. So if you're not done by March 31st and you have people who come in afterwards, then those are the people you're going to have to retro. Does that make sense? Okay? Okay.
I think standardizing the state is outstanding. I think that's something that the directors have been wanting for many years. A statement that you made was quality over quantity.
Yes, ma'am.
And as you know, we were all given goals.
Yes, ma'am.
Which were quantity
Yes.
based.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you elaborate on that goal that was set in retrospect to the quality of services that we are delivering?
I sure can. So when you talk about quality versus quantity, when I look at some of our locations in our service areas, you have classes with 6 people in it, 4 people in it. If it's a rural area, maybe that's why you have that. That might be the only location. But if you have a class right here and there's a class a mile away, and one class got 6 and one class got 4, maybe you have one class versus 2. So it's, the director has to look at their whole program. What are you offering? Where are you offering? Why are you offering? And you may have to restructure your staffing, restructure a lot of things as we move forward, because you are moving into quality. Now, we will always have goals. Accountability has to exist. When we fail with all the other partners around accountability, we have to set outcomes. And as I've said in other meetings, the state give us money, the feds give us money. The state want their results, the feds want their results. So how do we as a state meet all of that? It's a lot to do. What it is, this is a year-round program. Feds go July 1 to June 30th. States go from October 1 to September 30th. You have accountability year-round. So to say we have trends or patterns from the past, that's the whole point of innovation. What are we offering different? How are we getting a different clientele? How are we recruiting? How are we outreaching? Who needs our services? Where do they need our services? You got to look at the whole spectrum, because what happens at the end of the day is the state says we have this many people in our state who are uneducated and qualify for the programs. So I get what you're saying. There is a challenge. But I would be a director, personally, who would say, maybe my goal was 1,000 people for the sake of numbers. Maybe I didn't get 1,000 people, but maybe I got 700. But 90% of my 700 progress, I'll speak to that. Versus I got 1,000 as my goal, I only got 400 people in, and only 200 of those 400 moved to a next level. So think about where you want to focus your resources and the story you want to tell for your service area. So when I say quality, if I got more people moving forward of the people that are actually engaged in the program, then that's a better story to tell your president and the state and the feds than it is to say I didn't get no people in, and of the people I got in, only 15% of them moved up a level. So it just depends. So when I say quality, you got to look at how your programs are working. Where are the people? Where are you offering classes? Are you offering classes in places that maybe you didn't even think about? Are you offering classes inside of workplaces, hospitals, health? I mean, we're just so stuck doing what we've been doing. We gotta do something different to get something different. Otherwise, like I said, I'm trying to keep my job. I mean, and that's really what it boils down to. So it's really about where are you going to get? We serve those with or without high school diplomas. Remember, 12.9 or less. If someone is at the 11th grade, they still can, if they test it, they still can be in your program. We got to offer more fast track so we get them in and get them in their career pathway. It's just that we have to do business differently. All of us want the latest and greatest version of the car. That's why many car dealerships make a lot of money. 2014 model don't look like 2015. It's something different. And we will pay extra for that something different, right? So why are we offering the same educational services we offered 10 years ago or 5 years ago? Think about it. We have a different student population. I'm sure that has changed over time. People used to come in just to read. Now they need to read, write, work, all of that. So you just have to look bigger than what you've been doing. You got to do something different. What's the definition of insanity? Everybody up in here crazy then. No, but I'm just saying we have to do things differently. We cannot do the same thing. But I will say that we're trying different things to try to figure out what of those things are going to be beneficial, not just to your program, but best practices across the state. You is so great. So that leads me to my last little piece. And I need all of y'all to write this down. Find you a piece of paper. It's a continuum that happens for our students. I need you to draw a circle. So first we need to, and I call this the 6E model. So when you do this at a local level, just say we need the 6 E's. So let's draw one circle at the top. We need to excite our students. How do we do that? You're going to have to think about that in your programs. How do you do that? You have to engage your students. How do you do that? Do you know who you're servicing in your programs? Do your instructors know? Maybe they just know who they teach, but they don't know overall who's coming to your doors. How do you engage different generation of people? You have younger people, you have older people, you have people middle age. How are you engaging individuals? This is the core of what we do. How do you educate? And I say entertain. You're going to educate according to standards, but you're going to entertain by using contextualized and relevant learning. So you need to educate and entertain, because if you're not engaged, educated, and you're entertained in that education, it's not going to work. It's just not. When we go to classes, yeah, we pay money, so we say, oh, it should be boring. But learning doesn't have to be boring. It can be exciting and actually entertaining. Do I have a question right there? I saw your hand. Okay. Oh.
We all believe in our entertainment.
Oh, okay. But then all of this is so they are employed. And like I said, be it employed after a short-term certificate, be it employed after a GED, be it employed after receiving a high school diploma, be it a 4-year, be it a master's, be it a PhD. At some point, you got to work. At some point. So at some point, you're going to get employed. And then you want to go ahead and exit and move on. So we have a lot of work to do other than just educate people. So we provide a lot more services than what you think. It's just the way in which you provide those services. And when they get, as they say, on and off the ramp. Some people got to merge. People looking, what? I said 6. Well, these 2 E's go together, but they're 2 different words. Everybody in here literal. But he made it one word, so I'm going to make it 5. Edutainment, then. I counted both words separately, sorry. So, but really what you have to seriously think about is not just standards for your program, but also how are you going to create a performing program. I mean, when our average academic gain is 23, 25, 27%, that's low. I'm just saying average. I'm not saying specific programs. I'm just saying. So that means that 2 out of 10 students move forward. I don't know about you, but if I was a legislator, I would be concerned about that. Especially if I'm funding you at more money actually than the feds do for the state of Alabama. So find out these things. Look at your programs, directors. Think about how you're doing, what you're doing. And it may be time to do something different. Not maybe, it is. Now, I didn't say you have to go back and reinvent everything. Some things are working, but other things are not working. So let's try something new. which is why the state keeps implementing new things and new options for our students to be able to progress. But at the end of the day, the core of what we do is educate. So education is what they need, but all this other stuff is what I call auxiliary services. They need all these other services. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That change is quite different from GED as far as scoring, whatever. I'll have a student, let's say, well, okay, she came in, we put her in a language, okay? So she works up, she makes a gain in language, she keeps working up. Then she gets to take the GED, she passes it, and I'm still supposed to be taping her then in language 40 hours later, and she says, I'm through with that. I want to put my attention, I'm not paying any attention to this test right here. I want to put my attention to math or science or social studies, whatever I'm taking next. That shows up against us. But we can't help that if the student feels that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll say, well, look, you're making me look awful, but I can see their point. They don't want to go back and be spending time on that type of instruction when they've moved past that. Mm-hmm. So how are we supposed to account for that in our gains?
It's going to change.
It is?
It's going to change.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
WIOA is changing faster than we are.
Good.
See, the thing is we trying to get some change agents, mm-hmm. and we seem to like the state agents. Stay where you at. And so, and I say that to say that WIOA is forcing us to make those changes, not from just a programmatic perspective, but from a data perspective, and how we work with our IT department, our IT providers to record information in our system. Our system was initially designed to just track NRS according to NRS rules. Well, NRS is changing, our data is changing, what we collect is changing, reporting is changing. So we're trying to stay caught up according to what we need to do and prioritize and reprioritize. So it's coming. Academic gains is changing to measurable skill gains, and how we measure that will be very different, because now we have to track everything about the student. Multiple gains they can get in different areas, and we have to be able to track that. So it's coming. We're kind of rolling it out slowly, but surely we're thinking about what our rollout plan is right now. So just be patient. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So because we see we have to anticipate what we don't know, which is unintended consequences as well when we're collecting data and creating reports from that. I'm not an IT expert, but we have to work with them to make sure that they're doing it according to what the rules say. So, any other questions? Burning questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Leave at 8:30. Other people come in at 9 and leave at 11, and it's hard to have all those little classes where I'm teaching. I try to do some, but I try to work with them individually. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering if anybody has a good solution about how to implement all of this, but we don't have the same students for hardly 10 minutes at a time during the week.
And that's when I say, when I mean you have to do things differently. Programs may have to have some managed enrolled classes and some open entry and open exit. You shouldn't have 100% open entry and open exit, especially if you're a full-time teacher. There's a way in which you need to look at the program design to figure out how you can have those regular students, or there's a way in which the new students roll into your classroom. So that's what I mean when I say we have got to change the way in which we do what we do. So if you got some ideas, or you have some shared ideas, or we will probably put together some work groups after we finish some other stuff to start working on how do we do stuff like that. So we want input from the field because you do it all day, every day, but we want it so that it's in compliance as well as within our policies, as well as what's beneficial for the student and the program itself. So you do. We have been running open entry, open exit so long that now we're like, okay, but we know they're adult students, but how do you then differentiate between that student that's just coming without the real intent? I don't know, it's the best way for me to say that. Which is also why we're sending out some documents. But the one thing that I've been going across the state letting everybody know is that you do not have to have a test score to be entered into ASAP anymore. You do not have to have a test score for that student to be enrolled, but within 12 hours, they do have to be assessed. So we're trying to design our systems to coincide with the changes that we're making as well. But you'll get that probably before the end of the week. We're sending out some communications from our office. Yes, sir. You got some suggestions, let's go.
No, I had a question about that. So I could theoretically enroll a person with 11 hours. He counts toward my enrollment goal. Does he hurt me on academic completion?
Academic completion?
He has not taken a TABE test.
Right.
So he's
It
at
just
11
gives you some flexibility.
to have time to get
To
it.
have time to work with that individual, get them comfortable with your program
And then take it.
before you give them a test. If I went to the doctor and the doctor first, I'm gonna give you 4 hours of testing, I would be like, oh no, I'm finna go. I'm finna go. Wait a minute, I don't even know you. You know what I'm saying? Know you, what type of doctor you got, none of that. So we have to get our individuals accustomed to our own programs and know what we offer so that they can have the choice. Instead of us telling them what they're gonna do, they need to say, we're choosing this because this is my goal, not that this is the goal you have for me. It's a different perspective. It's a customer-centered and service approach, which is very different than what we used to. Go ahead.
That wasn't my original thought, but.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
But my original thought was when you talked about implementing change, we implemented a 2-day career readiness program. We added to our testing day, or 2 days after our testing, initial TABE testing. One of the things we thought when we started this class, just to share, some of the practices, one of the things we thought when we started this class is that they are not going to stay for 3 days. They're not going to take a TABE on day 1, come to 2 days of career readiness, because that's not our student. But surprisingly to us, we found out that once we said this is standard operating procedure for getting into Bishop's Adult Ed program. They take the TABE on Monday, they do the career readiness class on Tuesdays and Wednesday, and we haven't had a problem. Now, of course, they're going to excuse, they're going to be some that come up with excuses, but I would think the majority of the students stay for those 2 days, and we get the 12 hours within that first week, which helps us a lot because we were having a lot of problems keeping them the 12 hours, but they come to take the TABE and they never show up in the class. The teacher said, well, I got 2 folders, but they never showed up in class. So that helped us a lot to try to get to that 12 hours quicker. But it was something different, something we were afraid to do. And oftentimes in adult education, we talk ourselves out of why we're not going to do something. We said in a meeting one time, for those who are in LEA, they know what I'm talking about, we had to do these work groups. And we came up with 10 reasons why the students wouldn't do it instead of saying, we're gonna put it there and see how the students perform. So I do agree with Tony. It's hard, especially as a director, when you get that, your post-test rate is this, but sometimes you gotta take the lump on the head before you can actually make some progress. So I do agree with Tony, but it's difficult seeing your name in lights sometimes.
And I think that more than anything, we just have to know that accountability is probably going to be increased as we move forward from year to year to year, because our partners have to do that as well. Our Department of Labor partners, our vocational rehab partners. Accountability is just what we have to do for the funds that we receive, and we have to be within the guidelines that they set. So in order for us to receive the dollars, we have to follow their guidelines, is what we want to do. But you also want to know that accountability on behalf of the student, everybody gets paid to do their job, and what is their job, and how is your job impactful for the overall college that you work for? You have to think about. And then we also have to think about, anyone can be a adult ed provider, not anyone, but I'm saying community colleges aren't the only providers that can be that. For most of us who are in a community college, there is community-based organizations and different organizations that can provide adult basic education services. It's just that we, unlike some other states that are not the case, we actually have a treasure by being within a community college system, because we can transition people on to post-secondary, and because a lot of our community colleges have career centers on their campus. So you have everybody there. It's just, how do you make it work for each and every student, regardless of which program they come through? People think that just because I'm not necessarily a college registered student, that I don't have access to those services, but they do, and we have to make sure that they get those services, and we act on their behalf. So I say all that to say that my time is up. So I think they're going to do the raffle. Is that what next?
We have a question? Sure, go ahead.
Just let her do that announcement for a break, and then we'll get into this piece. I think Brenda's got an announcement she wants to make while she has a captive audience.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Everybody knows, well, not everybody knows, but we are a nonprofit organization, and we're having our annual fundraiser February